Hey everybody, I'm Scott Wikle. You're listening to My Kind of Country. Thanks for joining us on a Monday night. It's an honor to welcome my special guest this evening. Not only is he a great person, he's a wonderful entertainer and singer and songwriter, and he's got a brand new album, Under the Influence of Merle. And boy, that subject matter is near and dear to my heart. And we're going to talk about the album and play a whole bunch of cuts from it for you this evening. It's my pleasure to welcome Chuck Cusimano to My Kind of Country. Chuck, how are you tonight?
I'm doing wonderful. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing just great. Sure is a pleasure to talk to you again. I'm so glad you had time to be on the show.
Oh, yes, sir. My pleasure.
We've had some great conversations with music about over the years and the great Merle Haggard, and you have finished this wonderful new album, and these are all original songs. I just could not be happier about this project. I think it's probably the best thing you have ever put out, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's a labor of love, you might say. Been working on it for around 10 years, stockpiling songs that I wrote that I thought sounded like something Merle would do or something he would write. I don't try to emulate his voice when I sing it, but the music behind it, we tried to get close to the Strangers sound when they were recording at Capitol Records, you know, and they had such great players, and it was simple, but it was great. And we tried to get that in the studio, and I hope we accomplished it.
I think you've done a fabulous job with it, folks. It's called Under the Influence of Merle, and you can go to chuckcusimano.com, or you can also go to i2irecords.com and order this fantastic new project. 17 songs on here, and if you're a Merle Haggard fan, you're going to appreciate this album very much, and you're going to hear some of those songs tonight. Chuck, I want to start with the very first cut. It's an interesting title, and for those of us that know Merle well, we know what this number means, but it's called A45200.
You know, I've always been a Merle Haggard fan ever since he first come out on records, and I started hearing his name on the radio when I was a young man and not even out of high school yet. And I started hearing his name and liking his music, and you know how it can grow on you and infect your soul. It just, I mean, everything I wanted was Merle Haggard, his voice, his songs, his picking behind his music, and I mean, he'd be behind his voice. Just everything was just setting me on fire, and so I've been kind of studying him, you know, and I watch every documentary on him that I could find. And one day I was watching something, and they were talking about his days in the prison, and that turned out to be his prison number, A45200. I don't know, it just wrote itself, and I didn't know what to do with it. And finally I decided, I'm going to put it on the album as an introductory, and maybe people will understand, you know, that this was Merle's prison number and how he straightened his life out and got paroled, and well, everybody just about that's a Merle Haggard fan knows the story.
A-45200. He started doing things in his youth that he's not proud of. He was a troubled kid and uncontrolled. He had to do some hard time till he finally made his mind up to redirect his life, and one day he got paroled. I listen to his music, and I'm just amazed the way he uses words to tell a story. He paints a colored picture by the way he turns a phrase, and he doesn't even realize the glory. The poet of the common man is how they describe him. He has expressed the things we'd all like to say. A45200, was his handle. But we know him as Merle Haggard today.
You wrote a song called Another Chapter in the Working Man Blues. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Yes, sir. I just, again, these songs write themselves a lot of times, and just thinking, the working man blues, everybody in those days lived that. Now they've got a little different twist to it. Mama's really got them busy at home, got honeydews. They got to clean out the gutters and trim the shrubbery and change their oil, put new tires, and I tried to include that stuff. And if you got a leaky faucet, the wife's not going to put up with that very long. She's either going to make you hire a plumber or do it yourself. And I just thought, knowing Merle's mind, how he liked to fish and just kind of get away from everything once in a while. I mean, you got to keep your sanity. So I thought the Working Man Blues needed just a little bit of an update. So that was what I came up with, another chapter in the Working Man's Blues.
Well, don't get mad at me every time I come home with the day's worth of dirt upon my shoes. I've been working hard just to bring home the bacon, another chapter in the working man's blues. And don't get mad at me if I stop off at the bar after work to have a beer with the boys. I'm not hurting anyone, I'm just trying to unwind, shaking loose all the factory noise. But Saturday I weed your flowers, cut the grass and rake it, or clean out the gutters full of leaves. Paint the porch, change the oil in your brand new SUV. Sunday, hun, you've got me on my knees. Now what's a working man supposed to do? Another chapter in the working man's blues. Get mad at me if I take off to go fishing and try to clear my worried, blurred mind. I just need a chance to be somewhere soaking up the peaceful, and then I'm back into the grind. But next Saturday I'll weed your flowers, cut the grass and rake it, or trim up the shrubbery and the trees. Fix the sink, put new tires on your brand new SUV. Sunday, hun, I'm back upon my knees. Now what's a working man supposed to do? Another chapter in the working man's blues. Hey, what's a working man supposed to do? Another chapter in the working man's blues.
Well, before we talk more about this album, Chuck, give me a little bit of your background and your history for my listeners that may not be overly familiar with you.
Well, okay. I was born in Colorado, and my dad managed ranches. Cattle ranches, big ranches in the southeastern part of Colorado, and bleeding over into northern New Mexico, obviously, and just grew up horseback and helping my dad and growing up on the ranch. And my dad also had a Western swing band up until even before I was born, up until about 1959. And, we tried about 3 months in town with my dad working a regular job in town. None of us liked it. And so the job offer came at the Box Ranch down in Branson, Colorado, and we went there, and we stayed there until it sold and bounced around after the ranch sold from one ranch job to another. And then, of course, I graduated high school and worked on ranches myself away from home. And then I went into the Navy and did 4 years with the United States Navy and did 4 tours in Vietnam, and come back and thankfully not hurt or crippled or anything, and went back to cowboying for a while, but my itchy feet just wanted to try the music business due to the urging mostly of a guy by the name of Billy Mize out in Long Beach, California. I used to go sit in with his band, and he always told me, he said, I really think you ought to try music. I think you got a lot to offer. You write and sing and play guitar and all that stuff, and I think there's a place for you, and you ought to try it. So I finally decided I would try it, and I've been doing it ever since, probably about January or February of 1973, 48 years so far.
Well, that's great. I know a lot of different artists have recorded your songs, including D.G. Overby, and you did some duets with her on her last project, too.
Yes, sir. I actually produced 2 albums on D.G., and all the songs on her albums, either I wrote them or we co-wrote them. She's a great writer herself.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic person and wonderful singer. You know, she sang backup for Connie Smith for 7 years, harmony with her on Hee Haw and just different things. She had quite a track record anyway. I needed somebody to do a duet with me one time, and I thought about her and called her up, and she was all for it, and we got it together, and we won an album of AWA for Duo of the Year.
Well, going back to the new album, folks, it's called Under the Influence of Merle, available at chuckcusimano.com or i2irecords.com. 17 fantastic songs, and Chuck, you wrote every song on here, and except for one that you co-wrote, right?
Yes, sir. Had a co-writer on one of the songs, the late and great Kenny Surratt. He was, I don't know. To me, I couldn't tell who was a better singer, him or Merle Haggard. They sounded so much alike. And Kenny had a couple of hits, like in 1974. Goodbye Comes Hard for Me, and he also had Love and Honor that was written by Merle Haggard. Yeah. And Merle produced those albums on him, and they were great friends. And, I became friends with Kenny, and we wrote some stuff together. And then he called me one day, and he said, I have an idea for a song. And I said, what is it? He said, Home Wasn't Built in a Day. And, boy, it hit me. And I said, I'll call you right back. And about 10 minutes later, I called him up and read him the lyrics. He said, that's exactly what I was thinking. And so I put him down for co-writer on the song, because I wouldn't have written it if he hadn't given me the idea.
My front door opens and I walk inside to a home filled with love, and my heart fills with pride. A feeling of comfort reminds me to say, home wasn't built in a day. We had our wars and we wore our scars, but love always won any battles we'd start. It never was easy, but it's here to stay. Home wasn't built in a day. Home wasn't built in a day. If you're gonna have tomorrow, you've gotta start out with today. Some days tempers raging, we'd wanna go our separate way. Home wasn't built in a day. Tonight, we celebrate our anniversary. 25 years together, you and me. Our fights raised the roof, but there's proof today that home wasn't built in a day. Home wasn't built in a day. If you're gonna have tomorrow, you've gotta start out with today. Sometimes tempers raging, we'd wanna go our separate way. Home wasn't built in a day. If you're asking me about love, all I've got to say, home wasn't built in a day.
Well, I want to ask you about a couple of my favorites on this project, and then I want to ask about your favorite songs too. Lifetime on the Road, I think that is a quintessential subject matter for a musician such as Merle Haggard, who spent so much time out there on the bus traveling around the country.
Yes, sir. I guess I could picture Merle saying all the things I said in there. Or, for that matter, Mel Tillis or Ray Price or anybody that traveled with their band on the road constantly like that. And I guess some of them are still doing it. Some of them aren't doing what I call country music, but they're out there doing their efforts. But yeah, I think Merle would have really I think he would have listened to that song and say, dang, I wish I'd have wrote that.
Now, I know that you began work on this project quite a long time before Merle passed away, and I think it was your intention that you wanted to get some of these songs to Merle and see if he would record them, right?
Right. I was always trying to figure an angle to get my songs to these big-name artists. But, you know, you got to consider they get hit by everybody that they meet. My grandson's a songwriter. My brother's a songwriter. My sister's a songwriter. I mean, boy, I'm a songwriter, and I got one that make you a hit. You know, I'm sure they just hear it all the time. And I don't want to be a pest. I didn't want to really bug anybody, and I didn't really have any good channels to get to a lot of these people. So that never happened. But it was my dream for Merle Haggard to record one of my songs. It just never did come about. So, I always wanted to just sit and visit with Merle and not even tell him I played music, just talk to him. And I wrote one on there, I call it a ghost track, because I almost didn't include it on the album, because by the time the album was ready to come out, Merle had passed away, and obviously until I reached the Golden Gates up above there, you know, and the Pretty Gates, and maybe I'll get a chance to talk to him up there, but I never had a chance to talk to him down here on Earth.
I guess we traveled every major highway, interstates and one-way gravel roads, setting up to play our music for the people. think it helped lighten up their loads. We first traveled in a car, then big tour buses. At one time our name was painted on the side, but the insurance asked us not to do that. Now we sneak down the highway trying to hide. We spent a lifetime on the road. We're playing to a bunch of working folks. They think we're just playing, but there's a lot that they don't know. We spent a lifetime on the road. Faces in the band sometimes changing. Attitudes and problems came and went. It's hard to keep a touring family happy and accounting for the dollars that were spent. Hit song melodies changed a little. It's tough to sing the same songs every night, so we take the liberty to change them up some and try to convince the audience it's right. We spent a lifetime on the road. We're playing to a bunch of working folks. They don't know we're working, but there's a lot that they don't know. We spent a lifetime on the road. Bad habits fell by the wayside. Medication replaced the drug of choice. It's time to take better care of our bodies. We don't have a job without our voice. We watched our children grow up without us. A tour bus ain't no kind of good life for 3 school-age kids that need learning. And Lord, it's a heavy sacrifice. We spent a lifetime on the road, playing to a bunch of working folks. They don't know we're working, but there's a lot that they don't know. We spent a lifetime on the road. Home time meant rehearsal and recording. The studio became our living room. A day off to relax was true rewarding. Then time to hit the road came way too soon. I know when I quit the highway I'll miss it. I'll toss in my blankets and I'll dream of the miles and the music and the good times, and be thankful for every mile I've seen. We spent a lifetime on the road. We're playing to a bunch of working folks. They think our job is easy, but there's a lot that they don't know. We spent a lifetime on the road. They don't know we're working, but there's a lot that they don't know. Hey, we spent a lifetime on the road. This project was started 8, maybe 9 years ago, and I intended for the title of this project to simply be called Merle. We lost him 5 years ago today. Since he is no longer with us, I chose to use this as a ghost track in honor of who I consider to be the greatest singer-songwriter in country music. My dream at one time was to actually sit down with Mr. Merle Haggard and not necessarily tell him who I was or what I did for a living. Just have a one-on-one conversation with the poet of the common man. Rest in peace, Merle. You have influenced my entire musical career. Merle, I I'd like to sit and talk to you. I'd like to maybe someday have the chance to tell you how important your music's been to me and every other common working man. You'd never have to know I picked the guitar or how inspiring every lick has been. Roy Nichols, James Burton, Al Bruno, and yourself, some extraordinary guitar men. You'd never have to know that I write music with your influence laced in every line. Tell it like it is, standing tall with my convictions, the way I've heard you do 100 times. Merle, I'd never put the pressure on you to help me get the big break I desire. I just want to let you know I appreciate your talent. I'm just a common singer you've inspired. Someday I'd like to sit and talk to you.
One of the songs that I gravitated towards just from the title, but after I listened to it, it really describes a lot of how I feel about my life, too. It's called Radio Days. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, that one, too. I actually wasn't thinking about writing this for a Merle Haggard project. I wrote the song a long time ago, but it does involve Merle because my kids and I used to like to sit down and watch the Waltons when they were coming on television, went back in the mid-'70s, I guess, and Merle Haggard was on there one time, and he was Red somebody was his character name on there, and he was a burnt-out musician that moved back to Walton's Mountain, and of course Jason Walton was the one that was a musician in the family, and they hooked up. He went to see Red and kind of got him back out of his funk, and back to kind of playing music again, and he sang on that television show. Well, of course, on that TV show, one of the big things they had for entertainment in those days, and I still remember partly, when I was a little kid, how important it was to have the radio, because we didn't have television on a lot of them ranches we lived on. Well, we didn't have television, period, for a lot of years. And then we even though we had it on a few places, we couldn't get a good signal, so we didn't try to watch it. And so the radio was the most important entertainment outlet, other than sitting in the living room with your own guitars and playing music. My dad and I did that every night, sit and played music together. But that radio, when I was a little kid, I remember, well, you better not say anything or they'd realize you weren't in bed yet and they'd get after you. So you had to be quiet. And I just kind of put that song together with all that coming at me at the same time. I'm glad you like that. That's one of my favorites too. And also on that recording, we didn't use electric guitar or electric anything as far as, that sounds like it was played in an old schoolhouse. Eddie Morgan was the piano player on that session, and there just happened to be an old upright kind of a spin-it, I guess, type piano in the studio, and it was just slightly out of tune. It wasn't terrible. And I had to ask him to play it, and he said, well, that thing's not really in tune. I said, that's fine. That's what I want. I mean, it wouldn't have been perfectly in tune sitting in a schoolhouse when everybody pounded on it all the time. So I said, I picture this, a whole bunch of people sitting around together doing this in an old empty schoolhouse where they were having a dance, and you had acoustic guitar and dobro and the fiddle and an old upright piano, and that's what we came up with.
We pictured in our minds the good guys and the bad guys, the cops and the robbers, though we couldn't see a thing. We had our own ideas of what they really looked like. We'd gather after supper to hear somebody sing. In the radio days, after working hard since sunrise on the radio waves, we never understood how we could hear the world through this little box of wires. In the radio days, when everything was good. Grandpa was the one and the only one to touch it. It made some squeaky noise till he finally got it set. We'd gather around it anxious to hear our favorite programs. Us kids would stay there quiet or they'd make us go to bed. In the radio days, after working hard since sunrise on the radio waves, we never understood how we could hear the world through this little box of wires. In the radio days, when everything was good. In the radio days, after working hard since sunrise on the radio waves, we never understood how we could hear the world through this little box of wires. In the radio days, when everything was good.
Well, you've indulged me with some of my favorites on the album, and I guess Radio Days is one of yours too. But tell me some of your other favorite cuts on this project.
I think Lifetime on the Road, another chapter in the Working Man's Blues, and of course I like. I watched You Destroy a Dream last night. That's just a good old country song, but I think it's something Merle would have done. And Why Did I Wait So Long? I just got the Merle Haggard flavor to it. And Far As I Can, I wrote that song way back in 1967 and forgot about it for years. When I listen to it, I think if Merle would have heard that back in 1967, he would have recorded it. But again, I didn't have any way to get it to him.
You talked about the Merle Haggard sound, and you certainly have captured that essence on here. You're handling all the guitar parts on here, and but you've got some great pickers on this album too that are really emulating that Strangers sound. And so, tell me a little bit about some of the pickers on this project.
Well, thank you for asking about that, because these are just quality people in the first place. I mean, they're just salt of the earth folks. They're friends of mine, and they're wonderful musicians. There's a lot of them around here that are, and I tried to handpick the people that might fit that instrument, or at least try to give me what I was asking for. And I'd like to mention the harmonica work on here. So when I was putting this together, I thought I need somebody that can emulate kind of the Roy Nichols style of harmonica. Roy is real simple with his notes. It's just a little squall here and there. He wasn't a Charlie McCoy on the harmonica. He was just what he played was right, but it wasn't overdone. And so I asked my friend Larry Funches, who is a fantastic musician. He can play fiddle and guitar and piano and harmonica and I guess anything he wants to pick up. And I asked him to come in and play the harmonica on there. And of course, I emailed him some Merle Haggard songs. I said, just listen to what Roy Nichols is doing in this song. And then the guy that played dobro on this, Ray Austin, he's a great steel player. He was my steel player when I first put my band together, but he is a great dobro player, and I think he did a great job of playing the dobro on this project and sounding a lot like the way Norm Hamlet played dobro for Merle on his recordings. And also the steel work on this thing is the great Gary Carpenter. And Gary is a fantastic steel player. He plays on just about all my recordings. And, of course, like I said, I tried to emulate Roy Nichols' style and James Burton's style and on the guitar and played quite a bit of twin stuff with myself, overdubs, because I know they gravitated towards that in those days. Merle just put some fantastic music behind his voice. So it wasn't just his voice that I liked. It was the music also, and I tried to get close to that. Mark Abbott, who is deceased now, played all the bass on it. Had two different drummers. I had Dixie Hankins, who is incredible, and also the great Josh Rogers played drums on some of the later stuff also. Hank Singer, what can you say? If you know anything about country music, you'll probably know who Hank Singer is. And then there's a youngster. Well, he's not a youngster anymore, really. He's in his 30s, by the name of Jess Metter, that is absolutely incredible fiddle player. And I used both of them on the project, and they just did a stupendous job. The harmony singers, of course, D.G. Overby did most of it. I had one song that came to me as I was waking up one morning called Flowers for Mama, and it was almost, I was like having a dream that Merle came to see me, and he said, you're writing this, you're putting this project together, but you haven't written one prison song. And I thought, you're right. And so I wrote that song, Flowers for Mama, not knowing that George Jones had a song titled Flowers for Mama. And I knew that there was somebody I thought had a song called Roses for Mama. But I've been informed since then that George Jones also had one titled Flowers for Mama. But, you can't copyright a title. I had Leah Sawyer sing the harmony on that, and she was in there one night recording something for me, and she's just wonderful. And I did some of the male harmony vocals that we needed, and but other than that, it's D.G. Overby and Leah Sawyer who did the harmonies, the girl harmonies.
Well, you certainly surrounded yourself with the best, and it certainly shows on this project.
Thank you.
You sent me the CD of this, and by the way, the cover is great too. You've kind of tipped your hat to Merle's Serving 190 Proof album, and if you look at the cover, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you sent me a copy of this, and I sat down and listened to it from start to finish right away. And I called you right after I listened to it, and I was really almost choking up because very rarely does an album hit me like that the first run. It usually takes me a few tries to go through and listen and pick out songs that I really like. But from start to finish, this album absolutely blew me out of the water. It took me on an emotional experience, and I bonded to it right away. I bond with music. I don't just listen to music, and I want to thank you for what you've done here. You've really touched me, and I know that you're going to touch an awful lot of people when they get the chance to listen to this project.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. Yeah, that phone call meant a lot to me when you called me and told me what you basically just said. It really touched you, and that was the whole point. And like you said, I hope it touches a lot of people. Oh, I want to mention Floyd Domino, and I want to thank him so very much for the wonderful liner notes he wrote for me. And if you don't know who, I know you do, but if the listeners don't know who Floyd Domino is, he is one of the finest piano players of all time. and he played a lot with Merle, and Merle just loved him and tried to hire him after Mark Urey was incapacitated and couldn't travel with Merle anymore. You know, Floyd just had a lot of obligations. He lives in Austin, Texas. He's a session musician. He plays with the Texas Playboys. He plays with Asleep at the Wheel occasionally. He just plays with everybody, and he's so busy, he just had to turn Merle down. And he was telling me, Merle said, well, can't you cancel him? And Floyd says, well, gosh, Merle, you wouldn't want me to cancel you. And he said, you're right. You're a good man.
Well, I know Floyd worked with Merle in the last few years that he was traveling, and fantastic piano player, and that was nice of him to write those liner notes for you.
He's played on a lot of my projects, and we're great friends.
That's fantastic. Well, folks, we're going to play some more great music from this great album for you, ChuckCusimano.com, i2irecords.com, and we will have those websites on our Facebook page, and I hope you'll pick up a copy of this great album, Under the Influence of Merle. Chuck, thank you so much for being on My Kind of Country.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for having me, and I want to say howdy to all your listeners, and keep up the great work that you're doing, sir. You are awesome.
Thank you.
Why did I wait so long to tell you that I loved you? Why didn't I realize? Like the lyric in a song hanging somewhere up above you, till one day it stares you in your eyes. It's been there all along, like a low burning flame, till it becomes a blaze at the mention of your name. Why did I wait so long? Now you're in his arms, standing at the altar. He slowly lifts the veil to kiss his bride. I'm standing in the shadows with a salty taste of tears, and a broken heart forever curse my pride. It's been there all along, like a low burning flame, till it becomes a blaze at the mention of your name. Why did I wait so long? Tell me, why did I wait so long? Buy some flowers for Mama, some flowers to put on her grave. I wasn't here to say my goodbyes. I was somewhere paying for all my mistakes. When I was 14 years old, I closed my ears, and I know it caused my mother's tears. I hung out with the wrong friends, and I thought I was smart. I didn't know then I broke my mother's heart. Well, time gets away, and I was 20 years old and still wouldn't listen, and I was out of control. Stealing and robbing was mostly in my thought, and one day it happened. I finally got caught. I wanna buy some flowers for Mama, some flowers to put on her grave. I wasn't here to say my goodbyes. I was somewhere paying for all my mistakes. 25 years hard labor, they said. One blanket and one pillow and one concrete hard bed. I seldom got mail, then one day a letter came. My hand shook that letter. My mom had passed away. My tears soaked the paper, and guilt and grief filled my heart. I made my mind up then to make a new start. My time is up now, and I've got to be brave. So, mister, I want to buy some flowers for my mother's grave. It makes a man think that he is running away when he's got a bottle of wine in his hand. Well, I've got mine, and I guess I'll start my running today. And I'm going just as far as I can. This train that I'm riding ain't got no fancy seats, but I'm going even if I have to stand. This bottle of transportation is the ticket in my hand, and I'm going just as far as I can. I'm going just as far as I can, leaving you behind is in my plan. I'll wake up tomorrow in a far and distant land, but I'm going just as far as I can. Because I travel light, and it ain't about my comfort or my old friends. Hey, I don't really care where I'll end up tonight, but I'm going just as far as I can. I'm going just as far as I can, leaving you behind is in my plan. I'll supper and you push me away. And before the night is through, I wind up here, spending time and money that I should spend on you. But you don't want my loving, oh, what else is there to do? I go to work each morning, sad the whole day through. I'm spending time and money that I should spend with you. Sometime you agreed to be my wife. Your smile has slowly slid right off your face. You act like you don't want to be around me anymore, and you don't care if I wind up in this place, spending time and money that I should spend on you. You don't want my loving, oh, what else is there to do? I go to work each morning, sad the whole day through. I'm spending time and money that I should spend with you. Hey, I'm spending time and money I should spend